Our world is divided into two realms. The normal one, where mortal humans live, is called the waking world. But there is another world that waits for us when we close our eyes and sleep. A place called the dreaming realm. This realm is controlled by a godlike being, the master of dreams, called Lord Morpheus. His job is to regulate nightmares and dreams of the mortal people. He has the abilities to time travel, to morph himself into other beings, and even to manipulate others' minds. In the first scene, we see his beloved raven flapping through the air and arriving at his castle. Turns out Morpheus is in pursuit of a rogue nightmare called the Corinthian. The Corinthian escaped the dreaming realm and proceeded to wreak havoc on the waking world, killing many mortals in the process. So, as the king of the dreaming realm, Morpheus has to take responsibility to capture and stop the Corinthian. Shortly after, he dons his mask and leaves the dreaming realm. Although Morpheus is the strongest being in the dreaming world, he is weak in the waking world. Despite this, Morpheus is confident that he will get the job done with the help of his three deadly weapons: his pouch of sand, his helm, and his ruby. At the same time, in 1916 England, a man named Lord Magus and a famous magician are attempting a ritual to capture the Angel of Death and force her to revive their deceased sons. They are accompanied by their disciples, who all respond in culty unison, "Here in the darkness." As this goes on, Lord Morpheus approaches the Corinthian in London. The latter has just killed a man, and as Morpheus is about to finish him off, suddenly, he hears the chant, "Here in the darkness," repeating in his head. The very next second, he disappears. It turns out that instead of capturing the Angel of Death, Magus has mistakenly trapped the King of Dreams in his basement. Nonetheless, since Morpheus is a supernatural being, Magus decides to keep him hostage and takes away his sand pouch, his ruby, and his helm, leaving him powerless on the floor. And because of his imprisonment, the waking world starts going through a terrifying situation. A disease known as the sleepy sickness breaks out. The next morning, we see that over 1 million men, women, and children never woke up from their dreams, meaning they died in their sleep. That afternoon, the nightmare, Corinthian, tracks down Lord Magus and gives him advice on how to keep Morpheus captive, because if he escapes, he'll come for them both. They'll need to trap him inside a glass sphere, which itself is inside a binding circle to contain Morpheus's physical manifestation. Corinthian also advises Magus to make his guards take stimulants to ensure they never fall asleep in Morpheus's presence, because if they do, he will enter their dreams and control them. At last, Corinthian tells Magus to get rid of Morpheus's raven, as she will do whatever it takes to free him. Later, Magus heads to the basement, where Morpheus has been imprisoned, and asks him to return his son. However, the King of Dreams remains silent and naked, and barely even moves his body to respond to the questions. The same routine continues for nearly a decade, but Morpheus still hasn't uttered a word. During this time, Magus's second son Alex grows increasingly curious about the prisoner, and even tries to help him get out. However, Morpheus only remains silent, narrating to himself that he cannot give what these humans want. The wish will only disrupt both the waking and the dreaming worlds. It is now 1926, and Morpheus's stolen vestments have created youth and prosperity for Magus and his followers. One day, Alex approaches Morpheus and again explains how his father would let him out if he returned his dead son. Unfortunately, Magus catches his son talking to Morpheus and punishes him for doing so. He then blackmails Alex into killing the raven, and the boy reluctantly lures the bird into Morpheus's cage and shoots it dead. A devastated Morpheus can only watch the horror unfold from inside of his captivity. Several more years pass by, and one day, Magus's mistress, Ethel, reveals that she is pregnant. However, Magus wants her to abort it, saying he doesn't want any more children. Enraged, Ethel runs away from the mansion, but not before stealing Morpheus's helm, ruby, and the pouch of sand. Because of this, Magus starts going crazy, and even offers Morpheus freedom and the chance to get back his stolen items from Ethel, if he grants Magus immortality, wealth, and influence. However, Morpheus still refuses to speak. This finally breaks Magus, and he takes his frustration out on poor Alex. The two get into a scuffle that results in Magus falling backward and hitting his head on the floor, killing him instantly. Devastated, Alex heads to the garden, where he is comforted by a worker named Paul. The two talk for a while, and Paul suggests he try and reason with Morpheus. However, Alex fears that it is not a good idea, because he has already committed a sin by killing Morpheus's raven. As a result, the imprisonment goes on for decades. It has been 104 years since Morpheus was lured and trapped in captivity. Both Paul and Alex are now old and wrinkly, but they still want to negotiate with Morpheus. And one day, everything changes. Inside the room, as Paul wheels Alex away in his wheelchair, he purposefully breaks the enchanted circle, allowing the King of Dreams to finally use his powers. After the two leave, Morpheus manipulates one of the guards into falling asleep and enters his dreams. He then forces the guard to shoot his gun and break the glass sphere. As soon as Morpheus gets out, he takes revenge on Alex by putting him into an eternal sleep, where he is stuck moving from one nightmare to the next. In this way, after more than a century of captivity, Morpheus finally returns to his dreaming realm. But, to his dismay, it is not the same one he left. The once beautiful buildings that existed are now dilapidated and grim. Morpheus reunites with the realm's chief librarian, Lucien, and learns that most of the residents have left due to a lack of leadership. Hearing all of this, he is devastated, but nonetheless, he vows to rebuild his realm back to its glorious image. On the other hand, the nightmare, Corinthian, is seen in an apartment with his latest victim. He knows that his creator Morpheus has escaped captivity and is going to come for him soon. Then, we are shown why Corinthian actually wears sunglasses. In the sockets where his eyes should be, he has rows of teeth, like tiny mouths. He is known for his trademark of killing people by cutting out their eyes. Back in the dreaming realm, Morpheus explains to Lucien that he is nothing without his weapons, his pouch, helm, and ruby. Thus, if he wants to rebuild his realm, he has to find them first. Following this, we are taken to Buffalo, New York, where an older Ethel is hiding out from society. She appears to be an international criminal, living multiple lives. One day, she is greeted by Corinthian, who proposes a partnership between them, as they are both enemies of Morpheus. Ethel immediately agrees, and thus, they begin their alliance. When they are planning on how to tackle the situation, Ethel tries to lie that she does not know where Morpheus's weapons are, but Corinthian brings up her son, and proves he knows more than she initially thought. Back in his palace, Morpheus explains that the only way to get back his weapons is by summoning the trio of goddesses, known as the Fates. But for this, he needs something powerful from which he can absorb power. Hence, Morpheus visits two dream brothers, wanting to take back a gift he gave them a long time ago. It turns out the gift is an adorable dinosaur named Gregory, which the brothers love very much. They are reluctant to let him go, but Gregory himself agrees to sacrifice himself for the sake of his creator. With this, Morpheus drops to his knees and absorbs the creature's soul. Now, he has enough power to contact the Fates. Following this, he transports himself into the dreams of others, a land which he did not create. There, Morpheus finds a mysterious snake, with the help of which he finally summons the Fates. The three goddesses take the snake from Morpheus, and in return provide him with a clue about each item. The leather pouch, filled with sand, was sold in London, last purchased by a magic user called Johanna Constantine. The helm was traded away to a demon from hell in exchange for an amulet of protection, and the ruby was gifted from a mother to a son. That ruby clue was not very good. Back in Buffalo, Ethel still continues to say that she is unaware of where Morpheus's tools are, but in reality, she traded the sand and helm for a fresh start in the US, while her son John took the ruby from her when he got older. This means that the ruby can bestow one with an eternity of life. In response to her lies, Corinthian prepares to cut her eyes out, but before he can proceed, Ethel reveals that she doesn't need Morpheus's weapons, as she has her own. She then brings out the amulet of protection that evaporates Corinthian into thin air instantly. After this, Ethel goes to a prison-like hospital where she meets with her son John, who is now an old man. She inquires about his therapy and tries to converse, but John doesn't say anything. Elsewhere, in the dreaming realm, Morpheus informs Lucien that he must go to London and find his pouch of sand so that he will be strong enough to travel to hell for his helm. And just after he leaves, Corinthian is thrown to the dreaming realm as a result of Ethel's mysterious amulet. Lucien greets him and attempts to convince him to stay out of the waking world. However, Corinthian is adamant on returning there. In the next scene, Morpheus arrives in London and meets the magic user who supposedly has the pouch, Johanna Constantine. He tells her that they have business to handle. However, she shrugs him off and leaves, saying that she has an exorcism to deal with. Then she goes into a church, where she learns that a rich princess is trying to marry a footballer. Expectedly, Johanna is confused as to why the couple would require an exorcism, but just then, she hears the princess screaming. It turns out the football player has been possessed, and soon a demon climbs out of his mouth. strength. It completely eviscerates the football player and turns its attention on Johanna. Morpheus also arrives at the same time and recognizes the demon. The two then begin conversing, but Constantine takes advantage of the distraction and exorcises the demon back to hell. Following the incident, Constantine and Morpheus finally have a proper conversation outside, where he asks about his pouch of sand, but to his dismay, Johanna reveals that she couldn't open the drawstrings, so she sold it. Morpheus insists they must find the pouch because his realm will cease to exist otherwise. If dreams disappear, destruction will follow. However, Johanna does not pay heed to what he is saying and walks away. After the two part ways, Morpheus notices a raven that has been sent by Lucien to assist him. The bird introduces himself as Matthew and vows to protect Morpheus at any cost. Next, we see Morpheus arriving in Johanna's dreams. She appears to be having a nightmare where a demon is trying to drag her to hell. Just then, she wakes up and finds Morpheus in her room. He explains that he tracked her through her dream and wants to help her. Since Constantine experiences nightmares almost every night, Morpheus promises to get rid of them. This finally convinces her, and she begins looking for the sand pouch. As she looks in her office, Morpheus finds pictures of Johanna with her girlfriend, Rachel. This triggers something in Johanna, and she realizes that the sand pouch is actually at her girlfriend's place. In the next scene, the two head to Rachel's house to retrieve the pouch. Johanna explains that she used to live there not long ago. However, when all the people close to her started dying, one after another, she decided to leave Rachel to keep her safe. Soon, the two enter the house and are taken aback to find Rachel under the spell of the sand pouch. Her condition is so fragile that she cannot even speak. Turns out she has become addicted to the sand and the dreams that come from it, causing her body to wither away. As Morpheus retrieves the sand pouch from Rachel, he explains it wasn't meant for humans. He then prepares to leave, but Constantine demands he help her ex-girlfriend, since it was his sand that ruined her. Morpheus agrees and asks her to wait outside. He then pours sand over Rachel and puts her out of her suffering. It allows her to have one last peaceful dream of Johanna before she passes away. Back in Buffalo, Ethel reveals to her son that she only stole the magical weapons because she thought they'd help. When Magus's men came after them, she hid the ruby and traded the others for the mysterious amulet of protection around her neck. It has kept her alive all these years, but now she doesn't want to continue any longer. Hence, she wants to return the ruby to Morpheus in hopes that he'll forgive them. However, John wonders if they should give it away when they could use it to dream of a world without the King of Dreams himself. In reply, Ethel reveals that many people have already died for the ruby, and it's not worth keeping. She then takes off her amulet of protection and gives it to John as a peace offering. Ethel explains that it kept her alive for 116 years, so it should keep him alive forever. With the amulet now gone, her body begins to age rapidly, and she dies in John's arms, leaving him devastated. Hearing his screams, a guard arrives and witnesses the corpse. He quickly assumes that John has murdered her and fires a bullet at him, but surprisingly, because of the amulet of protection, the bullet bounces back and kills the guard instead. After this, John walks out of the building, which has been keeping him captive for years. As he stands in the cold Buffalo streets, the Corinthian appears from behind and lends him a coat. John, who thinks the man is simply a stranger, says that he doesn't want it, but Corinthian insists. The final scene shows Morpheus informing Johanna of her ex-girlfriend's peaceful passing in her sleep. He also reassures her that she won't be experiencing any nightmares from now on. After she leaves, Morpheus and his new raven friend Matthew discuss their next move to go to hell. This show kicks ass. Be sure to catch the following episodes on Series Recap.